Hello and welcome. Today, the Living with Wildlife Illinois team is doing a question and answer session on one of Illinois' rarest birds, the state-threatened osprey. I'm Kathy Andrews-Wright, and my guest today is Pat McDonald. He is with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Division of Wildlife Resources. Pat, can you give us a little bit of background about your role within the DNR?
Sure. I am the wildlife biometrician for the Forest Wildlife Program in our Division of Wildlife, and I manage our statewide chronic waste and disease database.
And you're also involved with the Osprey Recovery Program?
Yes, I'm the species lead for the Osprey Recovery Plan.
Okay, great. Pat, let's start out giving everybody an overview about the osprey, about its life history, its range in Illinois, and its habitat preferences.
Sure. So ospreys are a fish-eating raptor, which are associated with rivers, lakes, and coastal areas. In North America, you can find them along the east and west coast, the north central states, along Canada's provinces, parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and then they are found all over the place in Florida. They spend their first 2 winters down in South America. They are a migratory bird, and they reach adult age within 3 to 4 years of age, and the males have the strongest sight fidelity over the females.
So that's sight fidelity means that they're returning to the area where they were raised, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in Illinois, what's the range in Illinois?
Illinois has a pretty good breeding population up in the northeastern part of the state, but you will find them in various parts of the state.
Around large bodies of water, usually.
Right.
Okay.
So threatened species are those that are fairly rare in the state. They don't have a very high population. And so in Illinois, as you mentioned, they are listed as threatened. Throughout the United States, they are not considered a threatened or endangered species.
The osprey had formerly been an endangered species in Illinois, but I understand that it was recently delisted to the threatened status.
Right. So in 1977, I believe they were listed as endangered, and about last year they were downlisted to the threatened status because we had been seeing more reports of nesting pairs throughout the state.
Well, that's great news. So what caused the population to decline to the numbers in Illinois that it was listed as endangered?
So with a lot of raptors, ospreys were affected by the use of DDT in the United States, which caused the thinning of the eggshells, and that produced low number of offspring. So the recovery plan, the main part of it is the purpose of relocating osprey chicks from other states that have high populations and bringing them into Illinois and places where we have suitable habitat. And we also established artificial nesting platforms statewide to help the species have available places for them to build their nest as well. And the Illinois Endangered Species Protection Board had established delisting criteria for the species, and the first one of which is when they were still listed as endangered, once there was a record of 10 nesting pairs over a 10-year period, then they could be delisted down to threatened status. And to bring them from the delisted status off the list altogether, we need to have a record of 25 breeding pairs throughout the state over a 10-year period.
All right, and so that information is what is contained in the recovery plan. All right, so the birds from the East Coast come to Illinois, and that process is called a hacking process, which I'm sure a lot of our viewers have never heard of before. So explain what it is entailed in hacking an osprey chick.
Okay, so first when we bring the chicks to Illinois, we take them to the Illinois Raptor Center in Decatur where they were processed. They're given general health checks. They give them food just to make sure that they have plenty in them before we take them to the release areas. They are also fitted with leg bands, and they are also painted with acrylic paint on the chest and on the wings for easy identification in the field. Once we take the birds to their release areas, they're called hack sites. We have a hack box that the birds are put in, and we receive the birds at about 6 weeks of age, and they are kept in the box for at least a week, maybe a week and a half. They will fledge at around the age of 52 to 55 days of age on average, and so they'll remain in the box until they reach about that age. When they start showing signs of activity that they're ready to fledge, that's when they'll make the decision to open the box to let them leave naturally.
And while the birds are in the hack boxes, there are field technicians who are out there, they're monitoring their activity, and they're also feeding them. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process of feeding them and where that food comes from?
Sure. So the field technicians are taking daily observations of all the chicks. There is a camera mounted within each of the hack boxes where they can monitor their activity, and they send daily reports based on those activities each day. They're fed twice a day, actually, to make sure they have plenty of food. And they're fed primarily carp, and the carp is collected by our Illinois River and Kaskaskia biological stations.
So the Illinois Natural History Survey coming into play, helping us with the
That's right.
Osprey program, right? Okay, a little bit more about the hack boxes, please. I know that there are 2 hack boxes in Illinois. Can you tell us where those are, what they look like, and why those sites were selected as locations for the hacking project?
Sure. So the hack boxes are boxes on raised platforms. They're about 10 feet above the ground. They have a slotted bar front so the birds can look out and see their surroundings. That's the major part of the hacking program, is for them to be able to become comfortable with their surroundings so that they will know where to return as they become adults. The hack locations are at Banner Marsh, also at Lake Shelbyville. The locations were selected based on the habitat. Both boxes are within, a close distance of large bodies of water. You also have the Illinois River that runs alongside Banner Marsh, so that's right in the middle of the Mississippi Flyway for these birds.
And is a heavily wooded area important for the osprey too?
Actually, they don't spend a lot of time around heavily wooded areas. In fact, that could be detrimental to the chicks because great horned owls are known to be a large predator for those birds. So we try to fit these release locations away from large wooded areas for that reason. Bald eagles are also a known predator for osprey chicks as well, and so we try to make sure that there isn't, a nesting pair of eagles nearby.
But they do need some level of woodland because they're going to perch, right, as they're fishing?
Sure, they'll find select trees which they will perch on during the day. And, so having some trees around will be beneficial for them.
To help understand how well the Osprey Recovery Program is going, researchers are actively involved in this project. Can you explain to us what the researchers are doing on the ground and what kind of information are we learning already 10 years after the plan has been in place?
Sure. So at this time, we've released 90 chicks from both these sites, and the field technicians have observed that these birds are able to cover a large amount of area within the day. So they're constantly on the move trying to find locations of where these chicks are throughout the day.
And that brightly colored fluorescent paint is what is used. That's temporary paint, but it's what's used for them in that initial summer of locating these birds.
That's right. And as I mentioned earlier, when they're processed, they're fitted with leg bands. And they have a green leg band, which is unique for birds that are released in Illinois. That's a green band with 2 numbers and a letter. And on the left leg, they're fitted with a U.S. Fish and Wildlife band, which is typical for any project like this where you're releasing birds into the wild. And so The purpose of the green band is to be able to easily identify birds once they return to Illinois as adults, that we can, say that this bird was released in this particular year, and we can keep track of where these birds end up.
So what have we learned? Where are the birds moving? Are they coming back? Do we know?
So these birds will winter in South America, and so we've had a record of a few birds reaching parts of southern Mexico and the northern part of South America. And we do have a record of at least one bird that's returned to breed. It was one that was released in 2017 from Lake Shelbyville, and it arrived in 2019, and it's been paired up with a mate since then. In fact, that same pair has been observed feeding chicks which have been released after they've returned. So they are showing some of that altricial behavior of the parents. And then in 2020, we received a record or report of one of our birds that was released in 2014, also from Lake Shelbyville. It was captured by a photographer at Kentucky Dam at Kentucky Lake. We suspect that bird has been there since 2016 or 17.
Like many of the larger birds, especially the birds of prey, they don't breed their first summer. They have to be several years old before they actually do start breeding, correct?
Right, so they reach adult age at about the age of 3 or 4. So there is a little bit of a lapse period with these birds, so we won't be able to see results right away. It'll be a couple of years once we've released birds when they may potentially return to Illinois.
Patience is a virtue.
It is.
Pat, ospreys are really incredibly unique birds of flight. You can identify them by that crook-winged pattern of flight that they have. If someone is fortunate and they do see a bird that has these color-coded bands and they can pick up the numbers on them, what do they do with that? How do they report the numbers so that it aids in your research?
Right. So the band numbers are very hard to pick up through the naked eye. Even sometimes with binoculars, it's very hard to read. But that green color is unique for birds that have been released in Illinois. If they do see a band with that color, they can report that to our Endangered Species Program at the DNR. We will also get records of banded birds that were not released in Illinois, and they may report those to the Illinois Audubon Society or even inquire through the USGS Bird Banding Laboratory.
A project of this magnitude that has been going on for a decade now can't be done solely by 1 or 2 people. There are a lot of different partners that have been involved with this, organizations as well as individuals. You've already mentioned the Illinois Natural History Survey helping with the banding of the birds. The Illinois Raptor Center is helping with the health assessments of the birds. Who else is partnering with you on this project?
So the U.S. Corps of Engineers was helpful in establishing the release site at Lake Shelbyville. We also have a lot of DNR staff who have helped out with aspects of that. The Illinois River and Kaskaskia biological stations, they will collect carp for us for feeding. We have had a lot of assistance from power companies. Some of the small electric cooperatives in Ameren, Illinois, have helped out. We've also had some individuals from other businesses who have assisted early on in this project. We have colleagues and technicians from the University of Illinois in Springfield who have helped out with the hacking process, being in the field every day and running the operations, basically, of the program.
Well, Pat, thank you for sharing with us this great project, information about the osprey that you've shared with us. I know that osprey is of personal interest to you. This isn't the first time that you've encountered ospreys in your career. How did you get started interested with the osprey?
Well, prior to coming to the DNR, I worked for the World Bird Sanctuary in Missouri for about 14 years. And so I have a lot of experience and interest in raptors in general. So when I did come to the DNR and realized that the osprey was an endangered species listed within the state, I started looking into ways that we might be able to help them recover. So I'm glad to be able to use my background to get this project going.
And probably great satisfaction that within your career, the bird has been delisted from endangered now to threatened.
It has. I think it's a combination of just being more aware of the nesting birds that are around the state and trying to help enhance, their breeding to establish the nesting platforms and release chicks throughout the state to help increase or sustain a breeding population.
Thank you, Pat. We look forward to hearing more success stories down the road.
Thank you.